Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Community Hour. As you can see, we are a few more people than normal, at least one. We got Billy, the permaculture pimp daddy himself, live in the flesh from Permapastures Farm. We're lucky to have him here. He was coming through Tennessee on various permaculture shenanigans, one of which we'll talk about later in the video. But today we thought it would be an appropriate topic because we're all kind of doing the same thing. All of us here and those of you who are watching probably are doing the same thing. We're seeing what's on the horizon. By most metrics you can look at, it looks like economically and socially things are going to be kind of rough in the coming decade. How rough, we don't know, but it's hard to envision any scenario in which things aren't a little bit tough. And even if we were looking at La La Land, it's always good to assume that things could take a turn for the worst. And so this topic for today, for Community Hour, is what are we doing to prepare our homesteads and our families for troubled times? What are you doing? What are your brainstorming ideas? What are ours? What can we all do collectively? What can we do within our communities to prepare ourselves for these times to not just survive, because anybody can survive. I mean, you can go eat worms. You can always go cook, eat, and eat worms. You can always survive in any scenario, but we don't want to survive. We want to thrive. And so that's as much discussion as we've given to this topic today. We just talked about the title and decided, okay, we'll figure it out on the fly as we go. But first of all, welcome to everybody in the room. I know we have Conrad Homestead. Good to see you. Church of the Final Altar. And Permapastures himself. That'd be Bill. Or that'd
I'm
be
there. I'm there.
I don't think that's actually you.
Oh, okay, cool.
Although
My
technically William
doppelganger.
is like maybe
Yeah.
genetically partially you, but and Mary, good to see Mary. She's always found me on Facebook, and we've been having fun on the fun stuff I like to stir up on Facebook. I have just as much fun there as I do on YouTube. But you're welcome in, everybody, and I guess I'll just kick off and talk about what we're doing here on our homestead to become as resilient as possible. And I'd say there are two main areas of our focus. The first is food production. Obviously, unless you have your food production off the ground, you're not really ready for much. To me, one reason I got into homesteading was that we all probably know the term S hits the fan. And to me, it already hit the fan a long time ago. If you look at our food supply and what it does to our bodies and what it does, people's cancer rates and all these other health problems, it's already hit the fan and it needs to change. We need to take that change. So even without any further crisis, to me, we're already in crisis. So we need to be addressing the food problem right away. So that's one we've been addressing. And then the second is financial. How do we prepare ourselves for what to me, it seems just so clear. I don't think I need to go into all the reasons, but go ahead and just look at Zimbabwe or the Weimar Republic to see what happens when you print money endlessly and see that things are going to probably take an economic turn for the worse. So our main area of focus is not prepping, it's preparing our income streams to be diverse and strong and to survive in any kind of a scenario. But since I don't want Billy to sit here and waste all of his words of sage wisdom, we have such a cool opportunity to have him here. I'd love to hear what y'all are doing and how you're preparing. And
Well, does anybody out there seem a little curious that I'm taking the place of the dog tonight?
Holly couldn't make it. This is our second call.
Normally the dog is sitting, I guess, where I am, eating a bone or something like that. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. But hey, yeah, I'm in town for a couple of reasons. I want to say what's up to my man over there at the Conrad Homestead, Paul, and look forward to seeing a lot of other people in the future based on some of the conversations we've had today. That's another thing, but we're talking about resilience and preparedness to a certain extent. You know, I subscribe to the prime directive of permaculture, which essentially, and it seems like, Matt, it's the most neglected and forgotten and ignored of everything in permaculture. And what that is that you immediately, right out of the gates, take full ownership of yourself and your family, provide for them first. And I think so many times we put the cart before the horse. We all got to make a living, but we sometimes put that cart before the horse in terms of, hey, do we need to, before we go out and start selling a bunch of vegetables and stuff, well, do we have enough canned? Do we have enough put back? Do we have enough meat? Do we have enough of this or that? It's that prime directive in permaculture, I think, is so mostly neglected today. And I've tried, even against my own self, to try to make sure it's easy to get away where you get a project and you want to go with it, or you see a vision and you want to go with it, and then you lose sight of that prime directive. And I have many, many times, and I have to be kind of whipped back into shape by my wife and my son to say, hold on, maybe we're getting a little too far afield here. So I think fundamentally, right back to what you said, in light of these times, you don't have to be Nostradamus to see that food prices are going through the roof. If the price isn't going up, they're putting less in the bag.
Shrinkflation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're getting you. It's inflation one way or another. So at the end of the day, I think what I love about you guys is that you haven't forgotten about that. And a number of other people, you haven't forgotten about that prime directive in permaculture, that you first take ownership of yourself, your well-being, and those are the people that are most important around you. I think that's a really good place to start.
That's a really good point. That reminds me of a story. I don't remember who was telling it, but it was somebody within the permaculture world. And they were talking about how in their first year of homesteading, they were determined to have a farm, not just a homestead. They wanted to really be producing commercially. And they talked about all the struggles they went through that first year. But they had some startup money, and they were just intensively going at it. But then they were having to go buy produce from other farmers for their own family because they still didn't want to eat store food.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, that is just not efficient. We're losing money on the deal. So financially, the best thing you can do is take care of your own food production. And actually, I think I have a really good example of that when we were working on a video earlier, talking about how the first homestead I tackled was a really hard project. It was atrocious. It was a garbage dump. It was a meth trailer. It was rough. And I had spent every penny I had and then some. I literally bought it with credit card debt. Not something I would recommend, but it was my only hope of having home ownership as something on a musician's salary. So I was so dead broke when I went onto that homestead. I had no money to fix anything, no money to do anything. But the first thing I did, I moved in March. And the first thing I did was just plant out a garden. I just tried to remember what I could from when I was a kid. I had not yet studied permaculture or any of that. I hadn't heard the word. But right away, it did really well. I did something I wouldn't do now in retrospect, which is I brought a lot of soil up from the forest, which I had no problem doing to inoculate, but I brought a little more than I should
that's
have.
fine.
But it was good, rich forest soil, virgin soil that's never been touched. And so it did really well. And my plants did really well, and I had a ton of food right away. And so right away, I had no rent payment, and I had virtually no food. As you remember how skinny I got then, because I stopped eating anything except for what I was growing, and like beans.
Oh, wow.
And my finances recovered, and for the first time in my life, I began to build wealth.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to start saving money and got my debt paid off.
Yeah,
and it was really just because I wasn't paying rent, even though I was living in squalor. I wasn't paying rent, and I wasn't paying for food. And that was enough, even on a musician's salary of like $300 a week, that was enough to push me into saving money for the first time in my life. Not that I wasn't trying before, but I just couldn't. I kept having to fall into debt just to pay.
You were always paying rent.
Yeah, I was living in the city. I was living in Nashville. Rent was expensive. And the music, music, you put more money into it than you make. And so that it wasn't me selling food that turned my finances around. It was me having food and a place to live that turned my finances around.
That's one thing I think is so cool when I go visit certain homesteads, like down at Deep South. We sat down to eat a meal that Miss Wanda had basically taken. She canned all this stuff, and they actually eat all of their own food. Now, it was kind of cool because you guys, hey, by the way, they cooked some bomb burgers tonight. And it was cool that you went out there. I mean, literally walked out the front door, collected all the greens and everything else that we had there. I mean, and it tastes fantastic. And that's really, even if it's just a small portion to start with, I think that is profound in this whole homesteading space. And I think it's one of the parts that are most neglected, because at the end of the day, we're still reliant on these things in terms of our food production, especially at this time, where we got systems out there, whether it be your garden, your kitchen garden, your main crop, whatever the places may be. If we don't start taking that stuff and putting it back, especially at a time where corn prices have doubled over the last month, wheat prices are not far behind. Every single thing is about to rise. And I think I made in the video that came out on my channel today, where we talked about the chicken tractor on steroids, one of the things I wanted to focus on is that if we don't start looking outside of the box in terms of where we get our food, it doesn't have to be the chicken tractor on steroids, but if we don't start looking for alternate means to feed our animals, it's going to make better sense to go buy it in the grocery store for most people out there, including homesteaders. Because if it gets to the point where it's costing you already don't make any money by raising your own chickens. You don't make any money. You have the peace of mind knowing that those chickens were raised well in a as best an environment as you can provide. But now, how long before the pendulum swings the other way if we don't have other things in place? Like you had told me before about growing food for your chickens and growing. If we don't get into that mindset, it's going to make more sense to stay on the system, even though it's grossly expensive, because at this rate, it won't be uncommon to be paying. I don't even want to start guessing what chicken may go to. And I'm just using the most basic item, what chicken and pork may go to, just because they are so heavily reliant on those things. And so, so are we as homesteaders. But it warms my heart to be in a place like this. And folks, you don't know how lucky you are to be able to watch them with the things that they're doing from the bottom up and to see it up close and personal. There's so many other homes I can't wait to visit, but it is just awesome to be here and see it with my own two eyes, what is going on in the astonishing growth. And I saw the place that he fixed up, and what it looks like now is it's a marvel, really. The things that we're able to get done, and you did it with no debt. So, sorry, didn't mean to hijack the show, man.
Oh, that's the whole point of you. They can watch us anytime. This is really a treat for us, and I don't have to sit and talk so much. I'm actually hoarse right now because we have been talking ourselves hoarse all day long. Because anytime you get like-minded people together, and it's like you're starving, literally starving.
That's right.
For the fellowship and to talk with somebody like-minded, and just the ideas are flowing like crazy. And it's almost like you watch introverts become extroverts for the first time. But speaking of which, that might be a good transition to talk about what we've been up to all day. Although I would like to read a few comments. How are we doing on comments there?
We've got WB Miley. He's been helping me with finding country.
Oh, yes.
So glad to see him on today. He's look out for, if you're following Finding Country,
Which you should.
Yes, look out. June 1st, we should have the new edition out, and there will be a nice little introduction to William here. And so thank you for being on tonight.
In Finding Country, we do have a YouTube channel, but most of that content, you're actually going to have to read words. I know it's scary. I know we all like YouTube learning, but you're gonna have to read a magazine. It's at findingcountry.com. We all need to start reading again. We were talking about reading earlier today.
Yeah.
It's time to get back into reading, y'all. And Gabby is the content she's producing. Nobody's doing anything like that. She's going out. She's finding the stories of rural America and how people are making it, how people are adapting to challenges, what people are doing to make it in these rural settings, and telling the stories that don't get told. We only have the stories told by the mainstream. Like ever since the early 1900s, they portrayed these places as backwater, inbred mutants that are all stupid, and everyone should leave and go to the cities. That's always been the narrative. And she's finding the real stories about people who are working so hard to improve our community, and she finds these people around us. It's really incredible. So I just want to add that totally gratuitous plug there.
Well, thank you. We've got Mary. She says, yes, it's time to get back to natural nutrition and learning natural cures, learning how to stop relying on synthetics. Yes. I really think growing a garden is kind of like our responsibility. I don't think you can point and say we need these rules and regulations if you're not starting at your,
you're not an environmentalist unless you have a garden.
If you're not, then
that's true.
Then why should anyone else?
And that's like so much of that crowd. Like they do nothing physically themselves to improve the environment, but they will, try to use violence via government against others to fix the environment for them.
Yeah. And I think we got Chris in here.
Oh, hey, Chris. Pimp in the house, he says. Now, Chris, he just finished one of those, the chicken tractor on steroids, and I saw that.
Oh, that was the.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We're going to probably try to talk Chris into coming and bringing a camera down to their homestead, man. You think we're moving fast. They landed on their homestead a few months ago. He's already got a tiny house up. He's already got a fenced-in garden area. They're working 5 acres like us, and holy smokes, are they moving mountains. And they're our age, so it's really refreshing and exciting to see somebody our age doing that.
I'm blown away that, there's somebody out there, because one of the biggest problems with this chicken tractor on steroids is replication. You can't really call it science, even though you can't call it science until it's replicated. So I can't wait. We're given step-by-step instructions. So to know that this wonderful person is out there putting foot to butt, and don't be discouraged, because just so you understand, I've worked out most of the bugs, but it is a very complex system. It's the most complex but most rewarding chicken and composting producing system on the planet. And the fact that somebody's out there putting foot to butt to make it happen, it just warms my heart. I can't thank you enough for giving it a shot. So definitely let me know how that pans out for you.
I'm excited to follow his journey too, because I actually went out and looked at the lot. They were in Texas at the time, and so I went and kind of, he bought it sight unseen. So thanks for trusting me there, Chris.
Wow.
But it's only 5 acres, but like 1 acre is forest, and the rest is really level ground with the creek. Unlike ours, which is 5 acres, but 4 acres are deep, steep forest, and 1 acre is sort of usable. So it's gonna be fun to watch that project.
Tracy says just closed on our homestead last Wednesday, so excited to get going.
Congrats, Tracy. That's awesome. Huge congrats. That's the biggest
where at,
step in the world.
if you don't mind us asking.
Yeah, we'd love to know. I'm meeting so many Tennessee people, and I know I'm slow to get back to people on sovereignvillageproject@gmail.com, but do email me if you live nearby, and at some point I'll get back to you and we'll meet up. I bet every person, as they say, you should always meet up with strangers on the internet.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I might have met both of these people as strangers on the internet.
Yeah.
William is asking over at PermaPasture's Farm. I think he's just taking over the channel.
Yeah, that's what he does.
How's Gabby's house build coming along? Well, we were just out there, and there may be a video about that.
That's right. We did a really cool video on that, and it was a result. That video, I was hoping, because we were trying to fit so much in to one day, and I was hoping I could get it done. And folks, there'll be a video coming out on that based on. Folks, I don't know if I can convey how much they have done and how far they have come in a very, very short time. But I get told so many times, and I hear it so many times in a lot of these permaculture podcasts and things like it, where people are told they're given every reason why a person of color can't do this, which that alone just drives me nuts, because the barriers are the same no matter your color. And so to be able to be in a position like that where we could demonstrate that this can be done no matter your circumstance, no matter your socioeconomic background, no matter where you are, this thing can be done. And that's why it is such a joy to be here with people that aren't just talking to talk. I mean, I'm seeing the product of what you've already done. I see what you're doing now, and I see where you're going. So it's just mind-boggling to me that, first of all, I don't understand why you guys don't have 10 times more subscribers to this channel, because of the wonderful things you're doing. Oh, I know. Start engaging in clickbait. Ain't that right, folks? Don't get them.
What you gotta do.
That's right. You believe what? Yeah, I have been meaning to cry more on camera.
Yeah, you gotta do a thumbnail where you're just, you gotta do some weird stuff to get some people to.
We promise we'll never do that.
Now, Gabby's an expert marketer too, so she knows all of the clickbait stuff.
I know
she can
all
do
the
it,
tools,
but we refrain.
I will not use them.
That is cool. But yeah, that place is coming along great.
But I can kind of give an update about
Sure.
where we're at with that. So all the dry-ins done, the roof is up, the siding's done, and
Septic's almost done.
Septic's almost done. Really, we're just kind of at the interior stage, which we're doing all ourselves. So
and by the way,
on that.
I know I keep harping on Gabby here, but the other day we had the sheetrock delivery, and so Gabby had just finished a full work day. Did you do your run afterwards or before? Didn't you work out?
Oh yeah.
She then did a full workout and run, and then we moved 70 sheetrock, 10-foot sheetrock panels with no stairs in the house, as you saw. So we're like jumping up, and we move all the sheetrock panels. So we work until like dark. We come back, and then she's answering fire calls with the fire department, and we're out there till 1 a.m. doing that.
Yeah.
So single guys, find somebody that will do that.
I always said about Michelle that she's as hard as woodpecker lips. Gabby's as hard as 3 times 9 herself too, man. I mean, this girl she's homestead material. Matt, you got a winner.
But yeah,
it's just my looks that got her, really.
Oh, like I said, I've told him before, you got game when he could be living in a broke down trailer and bring home.
I was living in that meth trailer. There's syringes and piles of human feces.
We'll have to show pictures. We'll have to show pictures sometime.
Yeah. We'll do a whole video series on all of our projects. Every single house we've worked on, we're going to do a lot of content about all of those because part of what we want to convey, and this is maybe for those of you who are trying to prepare for these times but don't have your homestead yet, we want to convey this idea of stair-stepping.
Yeah.
I really am of the mindset, unless you're in a very specific job or you have a specific family situation where you can't leave, I would say you should find the cheapest property anywhere you can, even if you have to move states, buy it and move there and get a job, even if you have to quit your job. Because then it's such a good investment. Properties, if you have any critical thinking skills at all. It's hard to lose on property. It can be done. You can definitely get financially messed up. And there's a lot of things you need to be careful. Just do your research. But there are literally $500 lots in Arkansas. There's $1,500 lots here. Very small ones, RV lots. But you can have a plan to make them profitable. You can have a plan to build a homestead on them. Maybe you're using a composting toilet. Maybe you're only parking an RV there. But there's always going to be a market for that kind of stuff. There's always going to be a market for $500 properties, $1,500 properties. And so every investment I've bought has been really low income and cheap. So I was always able to like sell it for cash and stuff. And you just stair step your way up. And year by year, we've stair stepped our finances up while having a place to live, while having a place to garden. It's almost like this idea that I want to explore more, which is permaculture fix and flips. My last property, which is next door to us, I bought. It was a mess. And all I did was clean it up and plant food. I planted some perennials, I planted annuals, I got a garden going. But I didn't fix the house. I'm not really a carpenter, and I didn't have any budget for it, and I didn't have the tools. So all I did was clean it up, and I planted food. And then I sold it for about twice what it was worth. And the people that bought it specifically bought it because of the garden. So I don't think there's any content or anybody talking about that, how you can buy a property or a house and not even remodel it. Just get a garden established and market it that way to the world. Like, hey, here's a bug out property, or here's a permaculture farm.
Absolutely.
And so far that's worked really well for me.
Yeah.
That's what I love. That's what I loved about what you guys did, is that without ever having known you, you replicated the very same model that we have been doing for years and years as far as how to purchase property. Everybody's telling me the barrier's too high. Well, no, it isn't, because you're doing even miles and states apart. How is it we both arrived at the same conclusion on purchasing property without anybody? I mean, mine may be a slightly different, but we still arrived at the same place because I didn't have money and the resources and all these other things. Because I got news for you. A bank isn't going to loan on bare ground. So you better have some creative ways to get that. And what we did was go out there. Folks, it's really this simple. You can go to Craigslist, pull up a listing. Let's say it's 5 acres. Let's say they want let's say $30,000 for that. Go to that person and say, look, I'll give you your full asking price, but I'll give you $500 down, and maybe you pay $500 a month. If you're living out there, maybe it's something you can manage. And then, here it is. I'm paying off 5 acre tracts in 5 years. Now, of course, you want to go to a real estate attorney and get that thing written up and go through an escrow account. It's really simple. The steps are extremely simple and easy to do, but it can be done. Like you said, stair step. Take an acre if that's all you can find. Take 3 acres.
If you're starting out, you're not going to know how to work more than thank God I want, like everybody, I want 700 acres.
That's right.
But holy smokes, did I get overwhelmed with one. And the first property only maybe, like this property, what are we working? 200 square feet of garden space.
Yeah.
And we can't eat our vegetables. We're giving out our greens to our neighbors as fast as we can grow them.
Right.
And we're about to kick, the meat production, as you can tell, is about to start kicking in too. So that's on the tiny, this is 3/4 of an acre on this lot, but most of that's forest. So now we are bringing a little bit of hay and grain in for the
I think it's awesome what you guys are doing over here, and nobody really realizes. They think, oh, I've got to have this wide acreage. Well, there was a family in California that was producing 6 tons, or 6,000 pounds rather. It was 6,000 pounds on 1/3 of an acre lot in a year. So much so that they had to give it away, and they had to do a farmer's market. I can't remember. It was a guy and his 3 kids that were doing this. And it can be done, but people don't realize an acre is roughly a football field. That's a lot of freaking land.
It's almost too much.
That's right.
Until you get to grazing, really, you're not. And when if you try to scale it up too much, then you're getting into machinery and tractors and stuff. And it's like, you're probably not ready for that unless you're. For me, I will never buy a tractor unless it's like, okay, I cannot meet this goal without this piece of machinery.
Right.
Like, that's what so many homesteaders do. They jump into this when they start buying equipment, and they have these romanticized notions. They buy a tractor they don't need, they buy equipment they don't need, and they till up large patches. I've been working at an organic farm. I thought I was going to learn a lot, and I did learn what not to do. Wonderful folks, but I started working on this farm, and one of the things they had me do, they were paying me to put this during the beginning of the pandemic. They had me pulling weeds for hours, and I was fine. I was getting paid $15 an hour to pull weeds. I was fine, but it was this massive area he'd tilled up, and the soil was bare. And you know what happens when you till soil? You create a desert and you kill all the soil life. And then all of this crabgrass started shooting up, and all these weeds. So he was paying me all this fiat currency to be out there pulling weeds, and they were growing far less food than we have growing that tiny patch out there. Wow. We don't till. I only pull weeds when I'm ready to plant. Like I want the weeds there. Why wouldn't I want something doing photosynthesis for me while I can't deal with it?
Right.
Like it's filling space for me, putting energy into the soil, feeding the soil life, and then they like fall out when you have good soil. You just build it up. So you just don't need much to get started. Like if I were starting from scratch with just the knowledge I have in my head, I would just go buy the first lot I could. $1,500, $3,000 lot. They're still everywhere, all over the South and the Midwest. If you're in Oregon or on the East Coast, you might need to really think about moving. I came from Oregon, and the American dream is no longer attainable there on a budget. And you can own land, you are not going to be able to work it. The tyranny is so far gone there, and people are so accepting of it. Like my mom can barely do anything on her land anymore. I've seen farmers shut down because they put a 100 square foot shed, temporary shed, just so they can sell their products, and people just allow all of that unconstitutional treason to happen. And so you really might need to think about like how you just might have to move. There may be no other way around it. If you really want to thrive in these times, there are certain places in the U.S. where I just don't think it's going to work very well. Now, you may just have to work with what you got. There are ways around. There are people who are, like we talked about earlier, they're going to other people who have yards and they're partnering with them and say, hey, I'll raise food in your yard. You get half, I'll keep half. There's people doing really cool things with that. There's guerrilla gardening, which is like, I actually, even though I don't need to guerrilla garden, I kind of want to. It's such a fun, me being such a kind of anarchist type of person, like I love the idea of just planting food where that's abandoned and being misused.
Dude, that's one thing. There's one experiment that I didn't get to do. I was going to do in Texas. I was going to build a chicken tractor, and I still might do it. So if somebody out there wants to do it, hey, I give you permission to run with it. I was going to build a chicken tractor disguised as a transformer. And I was going to set it off to the side of the road in a place in Texas and use it to guerrilla garden all the way through.
That would be cool.
But I see you got some comments here.
Yeah, we got to catch up here. Find the altar. Hello. Mount Pleasant, North Carolina. Hello, Mount Pleasant. How far is that from me?
Not far, maybe 2 hours.
Oh, that's not too bad. That's next door in Homestead, in Germany.
Oh, yeah.
Mary says, Gabby, you're an inspiration. Yeah, she really
She is indeed.
Marcy, MCN, hi, howdy. Red pilling people, says M9. I don't even know what color of pills they are anymore. I can't keep track with the black pill, red pill, blue pill. I just say it's the green pill. Grow food. Brown pill, make compost.
I like that.
Noah says, YouTube suppressing controversial content is telling the truth. Yeah. We're always fighting the algorithm. By the way, likes do matter on these videos. They make more people see them.
Hit the like, y'all.
Church of the Final. I can tell from experience that hawks are more threatening, I think.
Yeah. He said he bought a dozen chickens and plans on building a coop and chips.
I can tell you what not to do.
Yeah, we have a
so
great
our
story
first
about
foray into chickens here on the homestead, I spent 2 days cussing and building a chicken coop. I don't like building. I don't like building at all. And so I usually like there can't be children around while I'm building something. And so I in the hot sun spent 2 days building my first chicken tractor. I actually built my first one when I was a little kid. I was like 8, but my first adult chicken tractor. And I was so proud of this thing. I built it out of all scrap materials from old roof trusses. It was really cool. It's still sitting out there. And I put chicken wire on it. It's like, it's called chicken wire. That's what you're supposed to put on a chicken coop, right? About 2 or 3 days later, I come out in the morning, and the chicken wire is chewed through. Dogs just chewed right through it. There was a pack of wild dogs led by this half wolf.
3 hens.
Yeah, they killed our chickens, killed every rabbit, killed every chicken. So, carpenter cloth. Use carpenter cloth.
And so far, we've had success with that.
Yeah. Now, but the best advice would be just go look at Billy's stuff on the chicken tractor on steroids. However, if you may be in like our position, we don't have any money right now to be spending on doing that. We're going to do that eventually, but right now we just need something to house our stuff in. We have an abundance of scrap materials from our house build, so we're like, well, let's just build whatever we can out of scraps. So we just built it as lightweight as we could, but as sturdy as we could. Covered it in carpenter cloth and only one opening into the tractor, so there's only one latch for animals to work. Because I guarantee you, animals will chew through wire. Predators will open latches. Raccoons will teach other raccoons how to open latches. It's been proven that raccoons, if there's like 2 garbage cans, they will choose the one with the harder latch because they like to challenge themselves. They've done studies on that. Terrible. So animals will surprise you with how adept they are at breaking into your chicken coop.
Well, especially if you don't use hardware cloth or something like that when it comes to chickens. We actually have it on a game cam photo where we had meat birds in this chicken tractor, and we had literally a raccoon reaching through the cage, pulling out pieces of the birds on the way out.
Live.
And we never could catch this little sorry ass. We couldn't catch him. He'd reach in there, grab them. He was pulling pieces out every day.
God.
I'd go out there and it looked like the La Bianca murders every day. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. Finally, we put the game cam out there and we never could catch him, but he would show up. And we had a little way to try to catch him, but he was so wily that we never could. But hardware cloth, no. They're not getting past that.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
If you get 1-inch hardware cloth, they can't reach through that.
Now, if you are improvising your own chicken tractor, we did make a mistake. I'd like to help other people avoid. If you're making your own chicken tractor and you're using hardware cloth and you plan to actually graze over the grass, do the larger squares on the bottom. We did like half-inch on top. I did too small on the bottom because we had it. It was free. And the poop and the sawdust and whatever they generate so much debris is not falling through, and the grass isn't coming through very well. So try to have larger stuff on the bottom, but do have a bottom because stuff will tunnel right under. They will do the great escape on you. They will dig very far underneath and come back up. Our tractors, we cover them with tarps at night too. We put weights and chairs and stuff and hay bales over the tarps because predators are persistent. We have on this small lot, we have a dog to alert us, and we put her in a place where she'll hear predators. And if it's the weather's right, we'll open the windows so we can hear them squawking. We can hear. That's the advantage of a small lot is we really know what's going on out there. And I've gone out there and there's been predators and I've chased them off and come out in my underwear with a revolver. Well, okay, maybe we should actually talk about what you came out here for one of the reasons you came out. It's something we've been tossing this idea back and forth for a long time about a homesteading conference and a festival for folks like us who are really serious about let's make this happen. Let's make self-sufficiency happen. Let's rebuild our communities. Let's rebuild resilience in people and landscapes. Let's regenerate the environment. Let's regenerate the people, the communities, the economies of people. Let's build our homesteads. So we were thinking about what needs fixed. There's a lot of great homesteading conferences out there, wonderful ones. But what could we do to improve them? One of the big ones was cost. I know that I certainly can't. We could never go to a homesteading conference. We just can't afford it. We don't have that kind of capital there. Everything we have is going into our home right now in our homestead. But we would love to attend them. So just cost was too much. So that was the first thing was, can we address cost? Second of all was, can we do something really different, make this a gathering and a festival and a place where there's live music and art and connection and a true experience. And is it a place where you can walk away with maybe some new phone numbers in your phone of people you didn't know who are in your area? Maybe like
it's not just getting excited, it's
action.
It's action.
Can we send people away with a course of action? So we are going to do a festival called the Back to the Land Festival. We're very excited about it. It's going to be in October, and we have a site that we just visited here. We still have to finalize a couple things. It's a beautiful site.
It is fantastic.
It's going to be great for families. There's going to be stuff for kids to do so that the parents can kind of learn on their own. We have a lot of things that we think are going to be pretty innovative and fun, and we're going to bring in speakers. We're not going to just bring in the big superstars like Billy here.
No.
We're going to bring in the people who just really have something that we think is important to say. A lot of it is going to be kind of like basic stuff, and then some of it will be a little bit more based on what do we do besides just build homesteads? How can we make communities really resilient? How can we build food resilience around us? I'm a prepper. And one thing I hate about preppers is that they're like, make sure you hide your garden, make sure nobody sees it. No, I want my neighbor. First of all, your hungry neighbors are going to find your garden.
No,
you're not going to stay awake 24 hours. So I want my neighbors to be fed. Never mind, altruism aside, from a purely logical standpoint, I want my neighbors to not be hungry because I don't want to die. So how do you make your community full of food? And how do you teach people how to grow food and convince them of the value of that? So there's going to be a lot of unique content in this festival.
Yeah, and also benefit yourself along the way too.
Yeah. What did you think about the festival?
I think, honestly, this isn't hyperbole, folks, when I say it is by far the best site I've ever seen in my life for anything of this sort. I've been to a number of them, and whether it was preparedness conferences, you name it, I've been to them. And I have never in my life, and I am not overstating it, the things that are available there, plus a lot of the things I think that we're going to incorporate into this festival have never been done in another festival like it in terms of how we're discussing the food. And there's so many things, folks, that we're still working out right now, things that have never been done at another festival of this sort ever. And then also where we where it's got this large community component, but it also has a lot of the things that Gabby's kind of addressed in our video earlier concerning it's one thing to take a kid to a conference. It's entirely another to have something worthwhile for them to do. Whether most of these places happen in very antiseptic locations where there is no swing set, there is no playground, there is no place for them to shoot a basketball, play volleyball, shoot soccer balls, and these little things that I've never even seen before in my life, but a kid would love them. And it's all these wonderful things, these components, whether it's, what was it, Gabby? What were all the other things they can do as well?
Yeah, so this venue that we're going to be, that we've scouted for this property or for this conference and that we're planning on holding it at is really cool because it not only has all of the great, kind of gathering spaces for the adults and people like that to actually learn and listen to speakers and do all of your normal conference stuff. It also we'll have access basically to staff members who will be able to, if you want to take your kid to a conference, like it's going to be in October, kind of around fall break time, and you'll probably want to bring your kids. Well, we'll have access to staff members who will actually be able to do all these activities with your kids while you're learning. So there will be things like archery, axe throwing, like Billy was saying, like dodgeball. They have these games. I don't even know what they are, but you've probably been to summer camp before when you were younger. And it's that sort of vibe that your kids would be able to have while you're also learning.
And they will also be learning too. That's one thing we're trying to work out is an actual curriculum for the children about like permaculture and putting it into. I almost think that permaculture needs to be put into words for kids so that us adults can get it. A lot of people they have a hard time with like what the biggest question in permaculture that like nobody's really answered well yet is what is permaculture?
Right.
And so it's almost boy, if we could get kids to understand, then the rest of us could get it as well.
Absolutely. But there's so many other options at this thing that appeal to all of us. Number one, to make it affordable, add food and hands-on components that really are absent unless you spend a lot of extra money at certain conferences. You're not going to get access to what we had discussed. I don't know if we want to let the cat out of the bag just yet concerning some of the activities, the hands-on activities that we were going to do. Maybe there's a pig butchery going on there to some extent. Maybe there's a community project that happens there. Then there's this entertainment component where typically at the end of every day of every, no matter what it is, there's no entertainment component, family entertainment, and then Matt, being a professional musician, has access to so many of those wonderful resources. Yeah.
And one thing we didn't talk too much about that, the entertainment is not just for fun. Part of it is one thing we need to do as we rebuild our families and our communities, because I think we're rebuilding a broken society. We truly are. The world's very broken. We're those of us, all of us sitting here on both sides of this laptop, we want to rebuild something. We want to fix ourselves, our bodies, our families, our communities, our nation, our world. And part of that, I really feel as an artist, I spent most of my career telling people to drink more beer in bars. That was the extent of my message. But I think music is a little too powerful and a little too sacred for that. All art is. And we forget the crucial importance of cultural capital. And music is cultural capital. It encodes really important things about who you are as a person, what your region is about. A lot of information is encoded actually in song, from even nursery rhymes like "Ring Around the Rosy, Pockets Full of Posies." That was actually an herb crucial for something to
Black
address
Death.
the Black Death. Yeah, back when they had real pandemics. And so one thing we want to feature is local young artists who are preserving real mountain type music. This particular region here, Hickman County, Tennessee, has some incredible musical heritage, and we want to bring that out with some of these young kids who are doing traditional old time styles, but also innovating within that. And so it's not just music for entertainment's sake; it's also music that is relevant to the homesteader. It is relevant to those who want to make a better world. We need to kind of rediscover what exactly is art and music, and how can we make them actually important to our families.
Well, it's this convergence of all these things, I think, in this conference that really are neglected in a lot. There's usually some effort made to try to reach kids, but nowhere near to this extent, and nowhere near with the facilities that are present here. So you have this musical and artistic component. You also have the ability for us to, cross-pollinate. I think that's one of the beautiful things that you guys were really insistent upon, is that we open up the place to where we have time to perhaps build community within this community at our communities back home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To where we're able to go ahead. Exactly. So I know we have some lofty plans here, but one thing that really, really pleases me is that it's a party with a purpose that is affordable. Mm-hmm. And when people hear about the other components that we're throwing into it for the cost of admission, I think they're going to lose their minds and wonder how on earth this is even possible. And I'm really excited about all that, but I'm really excited. I am ecstatic, not only about the location, but the notion of being able to actually shake the hand of another person out there that we've only communicated electronically in this forum. We can only go so far, and that's wonderful, because it was because of this forum that I met these wonderful folks here. But you know what's even better than that? Meeting them in person and actually physically touching them. And I think that's what's been lost over this last year, this human contact. I remember the first time I shook hands with a gentleman a little while back, and as crazy as it may seem, I remember how it felt. I remember how that felt. So I want to remember once again what it feels like to be in the company and the presence, to be able to hug somebody else and to be in the same place, and knowing that we all have the same goals, and we're all heading in the same direction. We're in different paths on it, but we're all moving in the same direction, and we're with a bunch of other like-minded people. And I think whenever you gather a number of people to have the advantage of their joint wisdom, good things happen. And I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
And what you'll see that's different from this conference or fest, we're calling it a festival. Conference sounds so,
sounds boring.
Sounds so
Conference sounds boring. There will be no conference rooms.
No conference rooms, but
trees.
But this festival is so much different. And what I find so refreshing about the ideas we're actively pursuing and nailing down and actually putting into action, are that it's not going to be like your typical conference where like the speakers are just like so out of your league you can't even like relate to them. We're making it a real point to make sure that the people we bring in are obviously experts at what they do. We're not going to bring someone in that's not an expert, but they're not so unrelatable that you can't learn anything from them, that you can't take anything away from their message, So I find that really exciting and really empowering too. And our whole idea, like Matt and I, when we've been brainstorming this for probably like 3 or 4 months now.
They put in some work, y'all.
I think it was Billy's idea.
And it was Billy's idea. And
these guys did all the work.
But like we talk about it a lot, and our big thing is like we've only been successful because we have met people who have empowered us and supported us and shared their ideas with us, and we realize how important that is to achieving the types of things we're trying to achieve as what you guys are trying to achieve,
sure.
what we're trying to achieve. We can only do it with other people, and that's really like why we don't want this conference to be like trying to inflate other people's egos. Like we really just want it to be something valuable that you walk away from it and you feel like you have next steps.
Yeah.
It's not like
course of action.
Vague enthusiasm. It's a real course of action. And I'm really excited to help provide that.
I bet people out there are excited too. I mean, the notion of making this affordable and accessible and to pack so many things in here, and then where there's not this big component to necessarily profit. In fact, I don't know that there is any in this kind of model, especially when you consider the things that we're going to be throwing in here and adding the other things. Now, people are ultimately going to have to, depending on how you want to come to this thing when it's finally worked out. But folks, we actually made a big step today to make the big step to put foot to butt into making this thing happen. And frankly, I need this. And I think a lot of you out there, holler if you hear me, because I guarantee there's a bunch of people out there that feel like this.
Right now, please let us know your thoughts, what you want. Like, we really need feedback as we make these decisions.
Yeah, because we've just been thinking, we've just been brainstorming between the three of us. And
let us know theoretically. One thing we're trying to figure out is kids. because I know there's in the homesteading world, there's a lot of big families, and so we're trying to figure out price points for that. But a part of the puzzle we need to figure out is how many people would be bringing kids and roughly what size those families would be. So if any of you are thinking about that, if you would just be you or just a couple or it would be kids, please just let us know what that number would be. Just right off even if you're just like, oh, that's interesting, or even if you can't come to this one but you're interested, just if you can just kind of help us give us that guideline, that would be very good research for us right now. We got a lot of comments that are really cool here. Mary says, hot dog, I'm in, I think. Hot dog, I'm in. Mary.
Right on, Mary.
We'll see you there, Mary. Now we're going to let everyone know way more on both of our channels and on Finding Country, and we'll have a website up very soon. So we just wanted to jump the gun a little bit and start letting this group, this inner circle here, in on what's going on. But boy, do we have a lot. We have a question specifically for you, but I'll save that for the end so we can transition to that because it's a very good question.
Yeah.
A lot of good tips in there. I can't get to them all, but like using marshmallows to trap raccoons, that would work for me. Steve Hall says land is $3,500 an acre in Western North Carolina, $1,200 an acre in East Tennessee. Yeah, Tennessee's still got surprisingly affordable land. Tennessee is one of the few southern states that's in the black financially. It's relatively, I mean, it's not a free state. There's plenty of tyranny happening here, but it's relatively free. It's geographically got some most like water resources. It's a good place to be.
Beautiful too.
Like Billy's been ogling Hickman County. We're trying to convert him, but
we try to
we need
convert
more
everyone.
good neighbors. Mary says permaculture equals life skills at our home, and permaculture is life skills. I think anything can be taught under a permaculture framework. I teach music lessons from a permaculture framework.
Cool.
Sugar Creek Homestead, Tennessee. Good seeing y'all in here. I need to meet up with more of these Tennessee folks. Like I said, do email me eventually someday.
Or go meet us at this event, y'all. That's right.
Says permaculture gives people an opportunity to really feed themselves, and that's empowering. Empowering, like it's truly empowering. That's a word that gets tossed around, but it's truly empowering. When you put food on your plate that you grew or even foraged, I think it rewires your brain.
Oh yeah, Matt and I always say like we feel like we probably eat better than like Bill Gates, you know. Like,
a millionaire cannot eat as well as somebody that grows their own food.
That's right.
Yeah, we always say that. We feel rich.
You could pay somebody $1 million, but they're not going to put the same care and nutrition into your food that you will.
That's right.
Mary says music is a cultural staple. All art is. Art is. We've forgotten the value of art and we've commodified it and made it garbage.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we know the price of everything.
Like
a guy with a whole lot of sense. Yeah, we know the price of everything and the value of nothing.
Exactly. So true. Loving the ideas tonight, you guys, says Isaac. Noah says permaculture is accelerating secession where conventional ag is retarding or reversing secession.
No argument there.
Far North Life says hello from our little homestead in Alaska.
Where at?
Yeah, tell me where in Alaska. And I would love to know what you're doing in Alaska. That's such a challenging place to grow food. Great for hunting, great for foraging, tough to grow food. And I lived a while and I worked on a fishing boat in Alaska. I almost never came back. Holy smokes.
Same here. When I was up there in the Army, oh my goodness, I loved it. I would have been there now, but Michelle's not going to put up with it.
And it's tough to grow food. It's really like definitely greenhouse country. Greenhouse and heated greenhouse. Human connection. This is Chris. I think we should add a dance element to the event. Traditional folk music and dances from this part of the country would be magical and necessary.
That is a great idea.
I bet we could find
Here's a good ending comment, like really profound. Would be magical and necessary from healing from social distancing trauma. Yeah, the 6 feet thing, that's actually torture.
Oh man, that's
social distancing is torture and people are damaged. I saw a video that was supposed to be inspiring. It was about a kid who had just gotten his vaccine. You know, they shot it into a little child and he hadn't been able to see his friend for a year and he's crying and running to his friend. And we're all supposed to applaud that. And it's like you tortured that child for a year. There's no.
And they're probably.
I struggle with forgiveness on that. I believe in forgiveness, but what they've done to children is barely forgivable.
Yeah, check out Amazing Polly on wherever you can find her right now. Look at her latest thing regarding this separation. And folks, that's part of the impetus for doing this is giving a big screw you to the powers that shouldn't be that want to keep us separate. In certain places in this country, we can't even be in the same room legally. Well, not legally. There's nothing lawful about this, but I digress.
I would also say, I'll go ahead. I can only speak for myself, but even if something happened and this venue fell through, I will be somewhere on the day of this festival with as many people as I can.
I'm down with that, man. At the end of the day, 3 people is a party. It could be a party with a purpose with 3 of us. But I got a feeling that people out there would be willing to get on the first thing smoking and come over here and cross-pollinate. But I got to say, that dancing thing, I'm not much of a dancer. but I've been known to cut a rug every once in a while, you know.
We have some certain Tennessee stuff around here that comes in moonshine jar. I mean, mason jars.
Won't be having any of that. I'll leave
Speaking
that to
of
you
which,
guys.
I forgot to say Roy Stone was in the room here. Roy Stone's our
Oh,
neighbor.
is
Yeah, Roy,
Oh,
Cindy, and Matt are some of our favorite people. They're home. They're great folks out here that we were lucky enough to meet. She grows the world's best heirloom tomatoes. So many bright.
so
wow.
she
She's
gives us so
preserving
many.
amazing genetics that would be lost. She was actually got
She
right
was
up to Seed
featured-
Savers.
Yeah, Seed Savers.
Really?
Your son Matt made me an incredible leather guitar strap that I
Yeah, you
showed
showed
everyone
me.
last
Oh, that
week.
was okay.
And Roy and I have maybe like chatted around the moonshine jar.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Moonshine doesn't even exist. But yeah, good to see you, Roy, and say hi to the family for me, please. Great folks. We'd love to have you at the festival. Let's see where. Somebody was said that that they're in from North Alabama. Isaac, in from North Alabama is a place that is geographically kind of the same as Tennessee. It's like the hills of the Highland Rim kind of fade out, and there's almost the same climate. So it's like we're pretty much neighbors there in North Alabama. So we would love to have you. RTR Worm Farm says it's an awesome idea. Thank you. Palmer, Alaska. Okay, cool. I was in Juneau. Where you? Fairbanks or?
No, I was in Fort Greeley.
Oh,
Fort Greeley. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was interesting.
They said they have 23 hours of sun at sometimes. That makes sense. Boy, like I feel like there's a lot of room for opportunity for cool innovations in permaculture in Alaska.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so let's what was the location? Okay, so the location will be here in Hickman County, Tennessee. We want to nail down a couple more things before we put any more details out on the location, but we'll have all those details coming really soon.
Yeah, very soon.
We're locking everything down. We didn't want to announce anything until a lot more was finalized, and this is kind of the pre-announcement. We've made several more videos today that we're going to put out that kind of like announce more, and we'll just keep putting out more information. We want to let people in on this as soon as possible because obviously we're scheduling this pretty soon, really. For as much work as it's going to take to get this going, we're sprinting, but we want to make this happen this year.
Yeah.
We
I
want
think
to lay
it's
the
very
groundwork.
important. Yeah.
It's very important.
That we get this information to people.
Yeah,
sooner
especially
rather
before
than
next
later,
spring.
and develop these connections.
Yeah.
Sooner rather
I want to
than
help
later.
people really get started by spring. So like next growing season, a lot of people can be like, know their course of action to hit hard. I'm of the belief no matter where you're at in life, if you have a homestead, if you're buying a homestead, if you don't have one, you're looking, if you're homeless, you're living in an apartment, no matter where you are, you should walk out tomorrow and plant something in the ground, and you should find a place to start some compost. Like you can start homesteading with nothing. Truly, like I didn't have nothing. I had a little bit. I did have some land, but like people are out there. I wish I could remember his name, but we were just talking about a guy in Memphis who goes around and he partners with the older gardeners who are like not mobile anymore. They're like really elderly, and he helps them start. He starts gardening for them and gets their garden going again. He keeps some of the produce. He can sell some of the produce and he gives some back to them.
And when you
There's
think
always a way to garden.
and that's such a community service too.
Yeah.
You know, it's like something that obviously benefits him as well. But
And how much are you improving that person's life
Mhm.
in your latter
Right.
years? You know, somebody that like has gardened all their life, like and they're alone. They can't get out anymore. They're not very mobile, or they can barely get out and they just can't garden. For those of us that garden, we understand that like. Can you imagine if you couldn't raise food or you couldn't get your hands in the soil?
Right.
How broken you would be inside? Like, I couldn't take it.
Well, that's the cool thing about, it's the same thing that unfolds in that soil is the same thing that happens when you get a collection of people, like we're talking of like-minded people, and even people that might not know exactly where to go,
Yeah.
but at least they walk away from there. Not just the notion of, how many times have you been to a place where you walk away feeling empowered? This one we intend to do so much more than that, where like I said before, it's like what Tom Joyner calls a party with a purpose. And I agree with that, where it can be all these wonderful components, whether it's the art, how we spend our time with the kids, because honestly, at the end of the day, our kids are the only worthwhile thing we're going to leave on this planet. And the trees we grow, possibly.
Maybe worthwhile.
Possibly. Possibly. But by and large, that's the larger goal. But that's why I know we have some lofty, I think what we're doing to some extent should all scare us a little bit because, number one, you're kind of putting yourself out there. This thing could potentially fall flat on its face, although I know it won't because Gabby has got some fantastic ideas as far as how to promote this. But folks, also keep in mind that this first time out is not going to be, there's going to be a certain restriction. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, there would definitely be like limits.
Right, limits. We could only have so many people at this venue for the first year.
Probably about 200. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but we want to keep it very manageable. So we're not going to be, I think we're not going to, given your platform and everything, we're not going to have, and our platform, we're not going to have trouble filming these seats, obviously these limited number ones. So we're not trying to create a manufacture scarcity or anything, but we'll get it as many people as we basically can. But, whatever we can do this year, obviously next year, then we can probably step it up. We'll have the funding ideally, and
But we really want to get it right, with this first one. We want to
really
get it right. We want to make it a great experience for everyone, and then we'll scale from there.
And I think when people see all the things that you guys have put together, and for the money that I'm still astonished. First of all, the location is extraordinary. Mm-hmm. But when you add into that all the other little components that all go together in here, and folks, if you're on a budget, we're working all that out to try to make it as, I don't want to reveal too much right now because some of it's in the works, but I think you're going to be blown away at what we're offering for the cost. Yeah. And it's not in an effort to try to make money. That's not it at all. It's really not even. In fact, that's the last component. In fact, we've had discussions about that very thing. It's not as much a component as you might think. In fact, it's really no component at all. The biggest thing is trying to do what most of us need most, and that's taking a bunch of people who are typically introverts and putting them in a position to where they can actually feel like extroverts around other people, who are very passionate about these things. So I'm starting
to think introverts don't exist. They're just people who want a higher caliber conversation.
Hey, good night, man. There's a T-shirt right there.
Well, Holly is starting to bark. I'll read a few more comments. Greeting for Iowa.
We had that one question for Billy.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, let's leave off on this. I feel like we've covered, we kind of introduced what we're talking about with the festival. We're going to put out way more information. As soon as we can, nail down things. We just like to have things concrete before we put them out. Obviously, we strayed a little bit from the topic, but we did cover a lot about building resilience on your homestead, and a lot of cool ideas have been exchanged here. But before we go out and get our dog in, who's barking because she doesn't want to be left outside, she just loves Billy too much, and
Michelle would love that puppy.
Oh my gosh, we got to introduce her to Milk Boy.
Milk what?
Milk what? That's how you have to say his dog's name.
You got to say a Milk what, or he ain't coming.
All right, Noah Cashmere says, question for Pimp Daddy. And this, I actually would like to hear this. Do you use solar for all of your electric? If so, I would love to hear your system or how to set one up. I'd love to talk about solar.
Solar. Okay. Well, I am a journeyman electrician, but solar isn't necessarily what I'm it doesn't necessarily fall within my level of expertise, although I can get that, quite easily. I understand the concept. I understand the theory. I know how all that stuff works. And at the end of the day, it's basically electrons going through a wire. So at the end of the day, I don't yet have solar lined up, but there's also a couple of big announcements happening in my place too regarding something that's going to be reliant on solar to some extent. Now, I haven't yet installed it, but I should also, just like Matt was describing a little while ago, that you take your homestead late. You start with a small footprint, and then you grow and you grow and you grow. Well, it's exactly the same way in all aspects of permaculture, including solar. Like one of the few solar things that I have going right now is I use solar to charge the batteries, the DC batteries, obviously, for my fence. There's 3/4 of a mile of fence that's all being essentially recharged by a cheap Harbor Freight solar panel that I'm testing out right now that cost me $30. So, and it can be done to what extent, I don't know, but it was $30. I mean, at the end of the day, it really doesn't. So you can scale up from there. The cool thing about these solar components, especially as accessible as they make them these days, is that you can take one, let's say it's a 100-watt solar panel. You can put it in tandem with another 100-watt, so on and so forth. You can get batteries involved where you take them and they charge the batteries. You use your energy from your battery in a DC way. When it comes to solar, at the end of the day, I'll talk to you more about it because I can talk theoretically all day about it, but until you can get an up close personal example, it really doesn't. I'm not going to do much help with this audience going into any great detail, but suffice it to say that in the very near future, you're going to see a whole lot of solar on Billy's Jungle Palace of Love.
I would also put, just off the top of my head, I think Curtis Stone, great guy with great content. He does a lot of live videos, and lately he's building out a new homestead. And what's cool about his project is he's got some money because his farms were very successful and his content's been successful. He's not a guy that had money. He was actually a musician like myself he got smart a little earlier than I did in 2008 during the crisis, like you did, and he started farming and stuff. And so he did pretty well for himself. And so now that he's done well, now they're building their final homestead, and they're very awake people who are, they're up in Canada, very aware of what's going on in the world. And so he's building out like a truly it's almost like what all of us would look at and just be like, that's what I want to do. And I know that he's doing like a very massive solar operation. So he'd probably be a good resource to follow. He has also a paid subscription thing, I believe, but he also puts a lot of free information out there on YouTube. So they're going to be tackling a cool project. But you did make me think of one thing on solar, which is that kind of like anything, like gardening or anything, I think all of us should just take the plunge on something. A $30 panel. We just got a $200 panel at Harbor Freight and a little tiny inverter. And if nothing else, we can charge our phones. But also, I'm not inclined to that stuff. I'm not mechanically inclined or electrically inclined, I guess. So it's a learning curve for me. So I just want to start learning and get my hands on it and learn what's what, learn the terminology and all of that. So I think just the thing is, don't worry about mistakes. Just go to Harbor Freight or Walmart or online or whatever. Just go find a solar panel or a solar unit. It could be as simple as a solar-powered security light. We've got one of those. Because remember, solar panels don't have to be a wall of panels on your roof or part of your home. It could be, okay, I'm just going to power all my farm equipment. So if everything goes down, I can at least power my operation on limited power. And then also another thing with solar is you should probably try to design without electricity as much as you can. We were just talking about our meat grinder and how a hand crank meat grinder, maybe you're getting some exercise while you do it, but that's one less thing I need electricity for. We're putting a fireplace in, so we don't need electricity for heat. We're designing our home to be cool in the summer, so we don't need AC. We're designing electricity out of our home. So therefore, our next homestead that we build is going to be off-grid completely, and we may only need a handful of a few $100 solar. We may not need a $30,000 setup. We might just need a few panels to power our phones and devices for content. We might not need electricity for anything else. If we design our home properly, we'll design for light, we'll design for energy, we'll design for everything.
You're welcome, Cindy. Hey, just remember, like he was saying a moment ago, even if you had even if you use those components to do your cell phone, and let's say just one battery drill, I could take that battery drill like Matt and I were talking earlier. I could take it and I could chuck it up to that meat grinder over there, put it on a low setting, and grind meat if I wanted to. But it could all be derived right from the sun, just like we use grass as solar collectors, and then our animals eat that grass
Plants
and make
solar panels.
Exactly.
The same energy conversion.
Same exact thing. Exactly. Except it doesn't cost you as much. I mean, it's right there in nature, but it's exactly. Start with the small components, get comfortable with that, and you can always upgrade, and you can do it inexpensively. I would not spend, because one of the problems with solar is that there's no standardized way of doing anything. Every manufacturer does it a little bit different. So
it's still even though it's been around for a while, it's still the Wild West. Really,
really is.
But that's kind of the fun of it. Well, I'll just go through a couple more comments. We really should go save our dog. Are you guys on Telegram? No, we're not, unfortunately. But I am, but we don't have anything set up there. But we may get there eventually. Obviously, we are both aware of what's happening on YouTube and all of social media and how there's a lot of censorship occurring. And channels can get shut down at the blink of an eye. So Gabby and I are definitely working on building some resiliency and some self-sufficiency and sovereignty on our internet presence, and we'll have lots more about that. We're going to probably keep this platform going as long as we can, even though we do have a moral objection to the censorship. It's just a good platform, and I love the YouTube community so much. So we're going to stay on here as long as we can, but we're going to start making sure we're resilient and building up an email list.
Having our own.
SovereignVillageProject.com
does
have an email sign up. I've not been faithful in emails, but we're going to get there. Gabby's going to help me really get that rolling. And we'll start communicating without this middleman between us of the Alphabet Brothers. Praying will be in Missouri before this event happens. Before I really want to come. Yeah, Jennifer, it'd be great to have you. Conrad says, "Sweet, just made some of the show. Came in from moving the sheep. Yeah, you got to move the sheep. We're just talking about sheep all day.
That's right.
That's one of our next projects. We always having to think outside the box with limited electric, no monthly bills besides the small cost of propane to cook with. To be off grid in Alaska, that is awesome. Props and kudos. That is so cool. That's such a cool place, man. I'm getting sad thinking about
I love Alaska.
Jennifer says that's my thinking too. The more we don't have to rely on electricity, the better off we'll be and more prepared than most. Yeah, the answer isn't a $100,000 row of solar panels. It's addressing everything you can away from electricity. Because in the end, solar panels themselves are still not self-sufficient. What are you going to do if you can't buy the parts? They're not going to.
Or a hailstorm goes and knocks them out. You know?
Especially going into solar minimum with all these drastic weather changes, stuff's going to happen. And Also, like if things got crazy, solar panels are visible. They're like, I don't know, there's just a lot of points of failure. I love solar and I'm going to incorporate a lot of it into our homestead. But the more you can design to not need it, I think the better. But you got anything more to add? I think we're at an hour.
And I think this has been extraordinary and
Cool
it's been fun. And honestly, it just feels exciting to go ahead and put out there in the ether to everybody out there that there's going to be a bomb conference. No, I'm sorry.
Festival.
Yeah,
Festival.
I'm going to get hit.
Party with a purpose.
That's right. I'm going to get hit.
That's a bad word.
Festival coming up, and we're going to have a wonderful time. I think everybody out there plan on being there.
Meet everyone.
Yeah, that'll be so much
We
fun.
love talking to you virtually, but it'd be cool.
That's
to
right,
meet
we'll
everyone in
hug.
person.
Yeah, we will not social distance. Everybody, if you have not followed Permapasture's Farm over there, seriously, I'm not just saying this to flatter Billy. I don't think there's anywhere like, even though there's a lot of channels I love, but like for just really good condensed like meat and potatoes, how to do this, how to do that, especially rotational grazing type stuff and chickens and sheep and also the perennial stuff. Really good source of information over there, and the whole family's in on it, and so they're producing just a wealth of information. It's concise, and every once in a while you can Billy to say something he's not supposed to on the channel. That's always fun.
Always fun.
I'm telling you what, I'm just looking forward to being able to take in some of the stuff from that farm, like we've talked about, and possibly bringing it to this festival. Got it right.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. It's always good to chat with you and have a real interactive conversation. Hope you have a good night, a good what's left of the weekend. In the meantime, stay safe, be well, and while I try to figure out how to turn this thing off, happy homesteading.
Awesome.